Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kinda hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarisinski, and today I'm joined by one of the cleverest buckaroos in the Midwest, Mr. Tim Brayton.
I hate that you said that intensely, but I do appreciate the attempt. I am a rootin' tootin' cowpoke.
Oh,
So as we all know, it is one of my chief characteristics.
it is, and I already can tell this is going to be a good one because clearly you know your terms too. But for those of you who don't know, we're here today because of Patreon supporter John. We're going to horse around a little bit on this one, I have to say, with our top 5 John Wayne movies. Or, for some of us, our 5 John Wayne movies here today.
I respect
Yes.
that about you.
I don't know if I do or don't. It's still up for debate after
I respect that you are honest.
Yes.
That
Yes.
you're not trying to flim-flam us. You are merely ranking the John Wayne films that you have seen, and I'm curious which were the 5 you picked to watch.
I know. And I'm curious how much overlap we have too. I will say, I'm just a tidge nervous about this one because a couple little breadcrumbs that you dropped around ooh, Carrie probably doesn't know what's coming to her. And then I tried to really stay off the internet to not research John Wayne. Didn't want to know a whole lot about him because I just thought it would be more fun to talk about it on this episode. But I am aware, sort of, that John Marie Wayne, whatever his last name is.
His last name, I believe, is actually Wayne. His birth name was Marion.
Marion.
I think is what you were
Did I say Marie?
John was a stage name. You said Marie.
Oh, it's not Marie. I knew. And that was one of my facts. Shoot, I was going to say I have 3 facts.
Marion Morrison was the birth name of the actor known as John Wayne.
Oh, boy. We're off to a bad start because that was one of my facts, was that his name's not really John, that it's Marie. But I'm already off course here.
I mean, if you want to go back and take that one for yourself,
yes,
you may.
I might. And as I was saying before we went into this episode, I am very excited to be talking to you today because the most fun that I've had in the last month was our last episode, which was a few weeks ago. And now I'm on day 7 of Rob being not in our house, not staying in our house. And
so you are
it's not
having a
going well.
great time.
It is a great time. Well, I've been alone with the kids. And
so you're having a terrible time.
I'm having a terrible time. You know what? Sort of. We talked about this before. Rob and I always say this. We think that the kids are better behaved when the other is gone. We feel like that's sort of a pattern. And then we kind of annoy each other by saying how was the week? And it's oh, it's actually great. The kids were really great. They were really easy, and vice versa. We always throw that to each other. It's just not the case this time. And I had to write him and be it's been really bad. It's been really dark since you left.
I mean, I certainly don't know the details, and I certainly encourage and indeed beg you to share those details. But certainly your eldest is approaching the age where it's just going to be bad.
Yeah.
For 9 years, and then she'll go to college, and then you won't have to worry about it anymore. But it's not going to be good between now and then.
I thought that's what they said, but honestly the first 9 were kind of rough, and so I was there'll be this period of sort of sweetness where we all get along and it'll be very blissful in our house. And really it just kind of migrated into a different kind of stress that she's brought into the house. So namely, yes, one of them, and again, I can't tell. You can tell me. I can self-reflect here a little bit, and you can be it's you, Carrie. You can tell me. It's fine. But I accidentally gave Abby, our oldest, a small panic attack. And I feel bad about it. But it was It was a small one, and things escalated quickly. But you tell me what you would have done in this scenario.
I will start by saying that you already are telling the better version of this story than I was expecting. When the sentence began, I accidentally gave Abby ... I was ready for the second part of the sentence to be a THC edible.
Oh man, that would be my worst
Which would help with the panic
nightmare.
attack, for the record.
True. Especially because the ones I have like CBD in them, so it would have just calmed the whole situation down. But I can't even tell you the level of guilt that I would feel if that ever happened. That would
Well,
be...
you'd have committed a crime.
Oh, okay.
That would involve you going to prison if you said it on the air.
Well, I didn't do that. So
wink.
I did. I really, really did. Keep this very hidden. Anyway, so what really happened? And tell me, because I'm going to tell Rob that this happened when he got home. So I need to decide.
Well, you're going to tell Rob that this happened in a few hours when we send him this audio to cut.
That's true. This is also true. He's going to hear it.
So you're not going to tell Rob. Shoot. Rob is going to find out.
You're
but
right.
Anyway.
So that's the whole problem. I was going to say, do I tell you the real story? And then if you're like, wow, Carrie, that's so horrifying, I should lie. Like when he gets home, maybe I'll lie or fabricate the story. But
I think you should try to do that and see how it goes.
Okay.
That'll test whether he actually listens to this audio before he puts the shows out.
These are you're just full of good ideas. So
thank you for saying that. That's not correct.
I'm so stressed even still thinking about it. So here's what happened. We, twice a month, I feel guilty about this too. I have lots of things I feel guilty about, but we have somebody who we call the cleaning friend who comes to our house every 2 weeks. Okay? Because we're messy and we just can't keep on top of it. Just getting ready for the cleaning friend requires many hours of work on our parts to prepare for that.
The cleaning friend sounds like the title of a 1960 novel about a bored housewife who has an affair with another woman, but to disguise it, they pretend that the other woman is the housemaid.
Oh, that's not happening, but yeah.
So tell me more about the cleaning friend.
Let me tell you more about this friend of mine who comes twice a week. Okay.
Does she give you a good scrubbing?
Oh, gosh. No. And I try not to.
Does she wick out your pipes?
Tim, she does not wick anything. She does not wick my pipes. I don't even know what that means, but she doesn't do that either. So.
That was a Cunnilingus reference.
Oh, okay. I was going to Google it later. I don't need to anymore, but I will go Cunnilingus because I'm not actually sure on that one either.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm regretting already that I even said that word. I just don't even know.
I just recall that the last time we had an episode involved you saying that you knew so little about human anatomy that you failed a college, where are the genitals located test.
It wasn't where they are. It was the number... Gosh,
of
Tim.
genitals that are had.
Yeah, kind of. Gosh, it's tricky. 2, 3, who knows? So back to the story.
Your cleaning friend.
My cleaning friend. So here's what happens. Before the cleaning friend comes, the kids are at school. If they don't clean their rooms, I'm in there and I'm kind of cleaning but irritated while I'm cleaning. So I'm just why am I cleaning this? Why am I'm not these people's service here to clean up all their stuff? So I probably go through. I dump probably a lot of things that I don't even want to see. I don't want their slime around the house. they have slime everywhere. It's in bags, it's in cups, it's in my Tupperware. There's slime everywhere in this house. There's little fortune things, the things where you paper, where you tell people's fortunes. There's just junk everywhere in the rooms. So I go in there on kind of a rampage and I throw a lot of things away. So it just is what it is. Cleaning friend comes, cleaning friend leaves. So 2 nights ago, the kids get up there and they're like, where's my slime? And I was like, I opted for the white lie. I said, I don't know where your slime is. I had thrown the slime away. But I said, I'm not 100% sure where your slime is. It could be in the garbage. It could be anywhere right now. I don't actually know exactly where it is.
Could be on a barge heading out to somewhere in India where it's going to fall and join the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Right, which now I feel bad about too. But yes, that's probably where it could be. So I was trying to be vague. Well, randomly and weirdly, I've thrown lots of slime away. It just escalated. And Abby was like, I am so mad at the cleaning friend. And I was like, well, don't be mad at her. And she just kept going. She's like, she throws away my stuff all the time. And this isn't the first time she's thrown my slime away. And she starts to escalate. And I said, You don't know that she threw it away. Maybe you've just misplaced the slime. And I just thought it would end there. It usually does. But she was like, no, I just don't want this cleaning friend to come back. She keeps throwing away my stuff and I'm so mad. And I said, well, don't hold her accountable. It could have been anybody, because I didn't want her to blame the cleaning friend because it was clearly me, but I also didn't want her to be mad at me either because I threw it all away. So this goes on for 5 or 10 minutes. And then finally she's like, rah, 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 rah. She says something growly underneath her breath. And I made the mistake of being like, what did you say? And then she's like, I didn't say anything. And I was like, no, what did you say? And she was like,
did she call the cleaning friend a B word?
Well, so that's what I was worried about. So this is where it escalates. Then I'm seeing red. I'm like, if she has said something mean about the cleaning friend, I'm going to flip out. So I was in there and I was just like, tell me what you said about the cleaning friend. She was like, I didn't say anything about the cleaning friend. I'm like, I heard. She's like, well, if you heard, then you know what I said. And I was like, well, I didn't exactly hear. It was kind of mumbly, but I think I know what you said. This went on this exchange for 5 or 10 minutes until she is starting to panic a little bit. She's just like, I just don't want to tell you. So finally I was like, if you don't tell me what you said about the cleaning friend, bah, I don't even remember what I said. I threatened something.
I hope you made that exact noise.
I did. I was so heated. I was so mad. I couldn't believe she would say something that was mean about somebody else. So finally she's in a panic and I said, you need to tell me right now and then X consequence, whatever it was. It was something horrendous. I'm kicking you out of this house. I didn't say that, but it was something extreme. So finally, she's crying and she finally mutters, I said, and I feel so bad about it, and I didn't mean to say it, and I feel so bad. She said, she's not even really my friend.
Well,
I was like, oh no. And my heart just shattered into 1,000 pieces.
This to me is where don't say mean things about people takes us, where your child has a grotesquely inflated sense of what mean refers to.
Yeah. And I had thought I had gone to a dark place, that she had said something bad and these consequences of what it was going to be. And all
the cleaning lady gets rammed up the cunt with a broomstick.
Oh, I've been hanging out with you too long. I was thinking all these horrendous words. I was like, did you say a bad word? She's like, I don't know, maybe. And then, but it was the bad word was, she's not really my friend. And so then she's panicking. Now I'm tearing up in the darkness because I'm thinking, oh, you sweet soul.
You didn't laugh?
No.
How did you not laugh?
No. Now I'm
that's funny as shit, is the thing.
No, but she's hysterical over this. And I was like,
I'll say she is.
So then now for the next 20 minutes, now I'm rubbing her back and I'm like, you're a kind person. You're a nice person. It's okay to be mad. I'm saying all of this stuff to try and walk her down after I have escalated this situation to a place it never needed to go because I thought, yeah, she says dropped a B word or something like that. I am horrified. And so I'm I don't know who the bad I don't know how bad this makes me. So I feel this is going to come out. Abby's going to be like, Daddy, let me tell you, probably. So I have to try and get ahead of this. Is this on me? Do I share this story as is to Rob, or is there something I should sort of, okay.
Yes, you do. Because it's funny.
I still feel
and it's funny that you think it's serious. So it's even funnier.
It's the panic that she had though is the serious part. Yeah, I felt awful. She's not even my friend. I mean, it's a 55-year-old woman. She's she's not even my friend. I'm like, well, no, she doesn't want to be your friend. She's my friend.
That's what's funny.
It's just terrible. I need Rob to come home.
I just don't get people who have kids, man. That's all I can say about this. God bless.
You would have lost your mind. You would have lost your mind. I had 2 other hysterical moments that I won't go into depth on because I'm sweating from that last one. But I decided to go on Facebook Marketplace and sell a couple things from our house, which subsequently
Abby and Alice.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would I sell first? Anyway, I sold a chair that literally had holes in it. And as it was going out the door, this poor woman was like listening to my children sob because they're like, that's our favorite chair in the whole house. I'm like, it has holes in it. But then I'm riding this balance of being like, it's okay to have holes in the chair and still keep the chair. It's not like we're getting rid of the chair just because it has holes. We don't have a place for it.
Well, yeah, because you don't want to lean into how the chair is just a useless piece of shit in front of the person who paid you money for the chair.
Exactly. But also I want them to know the value of like, you don't just get rid of something because it has a hole in it. Like I want to balance that, but like I really just didn't have room for this chair anymore. So it's just been a hell of a week. I'm just like, Rob, come home. I've traumatized our kids in your absence. I'm sorry. And I don't know what to do. And I'm just going to like walk away and just let him solve it when he arrives.
I think that my takeaway is that your children are very delicate. They have been raised like beautiful hothouse orchids. and a wind has come along. And the hothouse orchids are like, oh no, the air is no longer still. I'm going to crumple into dust.
This is true. This isn't untrue.
And what I'm saying is you need to show your kids like some real hard R action movies from the 80s. Like show them like Commando and Cobra.
Or, you know what I could show
them up a little bit.
I could show them, because some of the roughest and toughest things I've seen lately, I could show them some top 5 John Wayne movies.
You could. Then they'd learn about racism as well as just general violence.
Holy moly. We'll get there. I was wondering if you thought these movies were racist. If that was just me.
I think some people would call them racist, yes.
Oh, I mean, the ones I saw were like super racist, like really racist, like things that I had to Google. Like, can you say that? Like, I don't even think so. I don't even think I've heard some of the terms that were used in these movies. I don't think they've been used in a long time.
It's period racism. It's part of the wonderful pageant of life in the past. Oh
boy. Well, I'm excited to talk about it because we will jump into our top 5. I'm expecting we're going to have 100% overlap. That's just my guess. But I want to know from you before we jump in, what is your relationship? I had a feeling, we've talked about this before, that I know you like Westerns. So what is your relationship to Westerns / relationship to John Wayne?
Incredibly positive in both cases. Westerns are, I think, one of the quintessential forms of cinema because it's basically saying, take the camera, put it in front of something that looks amazing and record it well. Like you use good lighting to make the amazing thing look even better. I think that there is something about location photography in Westerns that's just kind of like what movies were made for. So it's definitely a genre that I treasure very, very much. I know it is a genre that has ebbed and flowed in popularity and is currently very much at a low ebb. Like it is not something that a ton of people really love, but I do, and I'm fine with that. John Wayne in particular, there's a lot of stuff that we may or may not end up digging into because you don't know about it and I don't care about it. But John Wayne's he was not a decent human. Like you would not want to be his buddy. You would not want to be like, hey, let's invite our good friend John Wayne over to the house and drink, champagne cocktails and talk about how much we love inclusive society. He's a reactionary in any possible sense of the word. But I'm just not the sort of person for whom that's like what I think about when I'm watching movies. And I think John Wayne has a great face. And I think great faces are very important for movie stars to have. I think he has a whole ton of authority on screen. Like when he just stands there looking grave and serious, he feels like so much emotional weight is just packed around him in those poses. And I actually think he's a pretty solid actor. He is a very limited actor. He has one thing he can do, but a lot of movie stars only have one or two things they can do. And I think in the Thing, it satisfies me. Like I know when I see him playing inside of his wheelhouse, and he's not always in his wheelhouse, but when I'm seeing him do the thing that he can do, he's doing it spectacularly well, and I'm going to have a good time watching it. All
right. Well, we disagree on everything that you've said.
Okay.
I don't actually like his face at all. I feel like he looks at me like he's better than me, and he's got like this super smug face. Like every time he's looking at everybody, he's like, hey, I'm just 10 notches better than you. Like I kind of get that vibe from his, like, he's going for a smolder. He's kind of like,
well, he's a movie star, so he is better than all of us. That's what movie stars are. They're like us, but better.
He's not better than some of the other people that he's in these movies with, which I'll get into, which I'm also really excited about, because I will say, of the 5 movies I watched, one of them I loved. Like loved. Like we'll watch it again. We'll recommend it. Loved it. So I'm really excited to talk about that one. The rest of them, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. But I, like you, so I thought I liked Westerns, and when I actually thought I had probably seen some John Wayne movies as I was starting to build this list, and then I realized I had never seen anything in its totality. Like, hey, what was that movie that I watched? Because I think my relationship with it is kind of like watching golf. My dad used to watch these movies all the time when I was growing up, and so I think I'd like fall asleep on a Sunday afternoon to my dad watching any kind of Western. He loved them. So I think I'd like fall asleep watching them, but they always just kind of like sounded the same yelling, the same gunfight, the same whatever, the horses clamoring. So when I like jumped into the first movie.
How do you know that it's not just that your dad always watched the exact same movie every single weekend?
That's possibility. Actually, he is the type of person that would do that, but he was also really into, have you ever heard of The Rifleman?
I have heard of The Rifleman.
It's Chuck
I have not seen The
Connors.
Rifleman.
It's Chuck Connors. He loves The Rifleman. It's a TV show. And Abby, again, maybe this explains something. Like most of her early childhood was watching The Rifleman with my dad. Like from like 0 to 4, they watched The Rifleman.
So Abby's just someone who believes in answering problems with a gun.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably where she's headed. It's just like ingrained in her now. It's one of those things that's built in. She doesn't even know where it comes from, but it's coming from Chuck Connors and The Rifleman. So I have nostalgia tied to it. What I realize is it's nostalgia tied to the sounds of it, like the ambiance, the sounds, whatever. As I actually sat down for the first time alone and spent multiple hours staring at a screen by myself to just watch it and like watch the storylines progress, I realized that part of it is less for me, is less exciting, especially I think in these John Wayne movies, because like you're saying, you don't care about the racism. You're moving past that. For me, as a first time viewer, I'm just like, holy shit. Like you can't say this stuff. Like it's so bad. Like he does not like Native Americans in any of the movies that I saw.
And I think one of the films you almost certainly watched is one of the films that is for sure on my top 5. So we'll have a chance to talk about it when we get there. I think there is a film where he is playing I think John Wayne was in and of himself in his life surely a racist. I think that John Wayne played characters in movies who were racist, and he played characters in movies who were not. But there is a particular movie, and I think it might be one of the ones you're thinking of, where I would argue he is both playing a racist man and the movie does not like him because of that. But we'll get there.
I think I know which one you're talking about, because those were the moments that I was like, ooh, do I like this? Because I thought maybe in the 5 that I watched, there might be this turn where we said, hey, let's make the Native Americans the protagonist. Like they were actually here.
Oh, that didn't happen until the 90s.
No, I know. I didn't find that. But there were some that were a little lighter on the racism. And so I was like, oh, like maybe I kept like hoping maybe it would turn that way. It didn't really, but there were some that were less. So I debated, like, do I put this list in order of like how much I liked them, or do I put them in order of like least to most racist, or vice versa? Like I was just debating how to order it. I think at the end of the day, I don't know.
The topic is not the top 5 most racist movies of all time.
That's true. And it's a good thing you say
which that. I do actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are any of these films more racist than that Shirley Temple short that you forced a bunch of us to watch a couple years back?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to pull that out of my closet. And no, that is definitely the most racist piece of content I've ever actually seen. But right behind that is this top 5 list. Right behind that movie that I recommended everybody see.
I love it.
So anyway, we will jump into it. I'm excited to talk about it, and again, I'll try to keep it as positive as I can. But to your point,
if you if you think these movies are awful and he's bad in them, I want you to lean into that. That'll be better content. It means you and I will be sparring.
Ooh, you know what? Better way to spar too. My other plan for this episode, and this is what I was going to say earlier. I think you're going to be amazing at this, but I also would like to see how many sort of cowboy / John Wayne terms we can infuse into this episode. Just keep it, but it has to work. It has to be organic. You can't just be like, saddle up, like out of nowhere. It has to be like, all right, Tim, saddle up. Give me your top 5 or give me your number 5. Like that, like really subtle kind of thing, you know?
All right, Pilgrim. Well, my number 5 then.
You took my next word. I have a list.
What if I'd said partner?
Partner, that would have been better because
All right,
Pilgrim
partner.
I was saving.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, little lady. I haven't actually given you my criteria for what I think makes a John Wayne top 5.
Okay, yeah, give it to me.
Because for you, it's a matter of I saw this movie,
yes.
and that was your criteria for. So you've seen 5. Like it's not even that you've seen 6 and you discarded 1.
No, it's just a solid 5. But I think it's a good list still.
I imagine you got. John Wayne is a case where I think the canonically good performances are the good ones. There are not any curveballs on my list. I expect we will for sure have 2 in common, maybe 3 in common. So I would draw a line between a John Wayne vehicle that is a movie that is good. And so what is the best movie in which John Wayne appears as the central character versus what is the best at sort of providing John Wayne to me and like sort of showcasing what is the John Wayne thing. And my list is the latter. It is my ranked order is Wayne's performance, Wayne's screen presence, how much it sort of taps into the persona of John Wayne, because he's a larger than life figure. So that's part of my list. That's how I picked my 5. So these are not my top 5 favorite movies in which John Wayne appears, but rather my top 5 favorite evocations of the John Wayne experience. The other thing for me that I suspect is not something that happened for you, and this is why I don't think we're going to have 5 out of 5 overlap. I needed to not have 5 John Ford films. It was important to me that I have some effort to not just keep using the same director. One of the all-time great director actor pairings, maybe the best. Like John Ford, the director, using John Wayne, the actor, might literally be my favorite all-time director using this sort of raw material of an actor. So it would have been very easy for me to put together a top 5 of nothing but John Ford films. I didn't want to do that. The question then became, what is the number to which I will limit myself? Because it was always going to be an arbitrary cutoff. And I actually only made that decision about 5 minutes before we started recording. I had 2 versions of the list. I had the 3 John Ford films version of the list and the 2 John Ford films version of the list.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you what that number is now, or do you want to just be surprised as we go along?
Well, it means nothing to me because I actually don't know if I have 5 John Ford movies or 1.
You have 4 John Ford movies.
Oh,
I'm willing
really?
to guarantee. I'm willing to guarantee sight unseen that you have 4 John Ford films on your list, maybe 5.
Don't know. So you tell me because I am super curious. And I'm really curious now. I'm even more curious if my number 1, which is again the one that I'm like obsessed with now, was John Ford. It probably is then because it's so good.
I have a suspicion I know what your number 1 is, and if I'm right, it's a John Ford, and if I'm right, it's a John Ford that's not on my list, but we'll get there.
Oh gosh, and I know why it's not on your list. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Because I couldn't do 5.
Okay,
I went with 3. You went with 3.
Okay, you went with 3.
I went with 3. I felt really bad about it. I was like, I should have 2, but I went with 3.
Okay. All right. Well, now I'm just antsy to just jump in. Let's get excited. Why don't you just, did I already say saddle up? No, that's not even saddle at all because I just told you.
You can say it again.
All right. Let's pony up and start with your number 5.
I think ponying up is something that gamblers do, not that something that cowboys do.
Really? Are you sure? I could see if you were a smaller cowboy that you might hop on a pony. Don't you
might. You might need to do that.
That's true.
All right. Well, let's get riding. So my number 5, which is the racist film that you're talking about.
They're all racist. Okay, but keep going.
This is the one you were specifically talking about, I think. It's certainly the one I was specifically talking about. This is the 1956 John Ford film, The Searchers.
Yeah, that was really racist.
Where is that one on your list?
It's my number 4. So there's one that I like least than that. But The Searchers is just immensely racist. Like to the
The
to nth
The
degree.
Searchers is in my top 25 movies ever made
And why?
Or
Just
the-
tell me why.
because it is such a powerful indictment of racism.
Okay. Tell me
Not,
more.
I mean,
Tell me more.
I think it's got a lot of things. This is a movie. It's the subversion of John Wayne, and that's why I have it at number 5. All of my 1 through 4 are sort of playing John Wayne more or less straight. This is the one that's like saying, okay, so we have this John Wayne character, this no nonsense, rough and tumble, going to get the job done. Don't you suppose that if you knew such a man, he would be awful? He would just be a horrible person to be around. You would find every minute of his company dreadful. You would never know if he was going to commit some insanely heinous, violent act because he's a thug. He's a brute, and that is this film's like sort of argument about John Wayne, I think. And it is, we have this idea of the thing called the neo-Western, which I think people assume started in the late 60s. I think this is an early example of it. I think it is John Ford using John Wayne to challenge what Westerns are.
Okay. And do you think so? In this particular racist movie, he is fighting the Comanches, which is a bit of a switch up. He's fighting different groups of people in some of the other movies as well. I think in this one, are we meant to feel a little bit pro Comanche by the end? Because I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's 1956. We can talk about the ending of this movie.
Everyone knows how this movie ends.
Okay, so the niece that he's after, that they're going to find, so everybody dies. The Comanches have killed them, probably rightfully, but then they take off with this little girl who then grows up. Ethan Edwards, played by John Wayne, goes after them because he's, so powerful and cool. So he goes off to get them. When they find them, this little girl has become like a part of their village or their tribe and is like and doesn't really want to leave. So I got to thinking when I was watching it, like maybe this is supposed to be like a little bit of a peace treaty. Like, hey, she's just actually a little bit better off here. But you think that's not the message the movie's trying to send?
No, I think the movie takes for granted that she's not better off, but the movie also takes for granted that he is a bad person for how he goes about procuring her.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the particular scene, he shoots the eyeballs out of a corpse.
Yeah, what a dick. Gosh.
And that scene in particular, we are meant to just not approve of. That is a horrible thing he just did. And I think that is a scene where the movie is completely turned against him as just this kind of savage creature who does not believe in the humanity of anyone besides himself.
Yeah, and the idea being, he even says it in the movie, the idea being if he does that, it's in their culture, it's that if you die without your eyes or whatever, that you're not actually going to be able to move on to the afterlife.
You can't find your way to the next afterlife. And
right.
he's doing this deliberately just as an act of defacing a corpse.
Oh
and
my gosh, it's so bad.
And, I don't think that the movie has a reading where it's pro-Comanche, honestly. But I do think it can be both not pro-Comanche and also anti-Ethan at the same time. I think that the movie is both of those things.
Okay. And what do you think is the stance? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this happens in more than one movie that I saw. He constantly brings up the fact that he is part Native American. Is that what is that? What's the purpose of writing that in?
Does he do that in multiple films, or are you just thinking of The Searchers
He's
twice?
like, I'm 1/8 Native American. I don't think he says Native American, but like...
No, of course he doesn't. That term didn't come into being until 1998. So I would be inclined to say that I think what's going on is he understands this world better. That is why he's able to move through it more effectively than anyone else. But I also think that it is... He belongs to no world.
Yeah.
Right. Like he is a corruption of both the Comanche and of the white settlers. Okay. Like I think that we're meant to understand that he is worse off than either of them by virtue. So if you're asking me to say, is the movie like progressive? It's not.
No.
And it's not.
I was trying to cling on to a couple of those points. And I was like, it's probably not, but maybe, but no.
I would say that it is not.
All right. Well, I found one again that I think is, but again, we'll get there. And it's not this one.
I'll bet you didn't, but we'll see what you came up with.
We'll see. I'm going to try to shoehorn it in there if I can. But let's move on to the next one, which my number 5, which I liked slightly less than the one that you just talked about, but probably very similar, very similar. But this brings in sort of a yellow-bellied guy, John Wayne, who comes in and is sort of like riding around. Well, actually, I take that back. There's a bunch of people that are riding around in a carriage for most of the movie, and they're trying to get from point A to point B, but it's sort of an unlikely crew. There's like a drunk guy, a army guy, a bank guy. There's a whole smattering of people that are in here. But unfortunately for them, their fortunes turn for the worse. This group of Apache members are going to raid this stagecoach from 1939. Indeed. This one is my number 5.
This was not on my list.
Oh, I thought it would be.
It is the like sort of first John Ford and John Wayne collaboration, and I think there's a lot that's very fun and cool about that, particularly the opening shot of John Wayne, where just this kind of zoom into his face. It is John Wayne gets more interesting with age. The short version of my response. I think that all of his most interesting stuff is when he's old.
I agree too, and I don't know what that is. And maybe it's he loses a little bit of the like edge of cockiness. I don't know what it is. There's something I like better.
I think the baby fat that's still part of him in 1939 somehow is a problem. I think once he's leathery, I think he can sort of do what he needs to do a bit more.
Well, he's quite a smoker. We found that out from this. So I think he's sort of like curing himself through the years. And I think you see that. And I think his voice changes even. His voice gets a little bit more smoky as it goes along too. So I was into this one was okay. I just thought it was a little bit funny. I liked the ragtag group of people that they bring together because it just for the humor that makes of that. But I thought it was mostly forgettable and kind of boring.
This is in my top 50 movies of all time. And if I had, rather than a best of list, a favorites list, it would be in the top 10.
Oh, gosh. I thought you'd like it because it's so old.
Adore Stagecoach.
What about it, though, do you love so much?
Absolutely every component of it. I'm a sucker for here is a self-contained environment, and in that self-contained environment will be sort of representations of the entire messy sprawl of humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what you have. The Stagecoach is this kind of like democratic cross section of the wealthy and the poor, the quote unquote nice people who turn out to actually be really mean, and the quote unquote fallen people who turn out to actually be very noble and upstanding. You have professionals, you have ne'er-do-wells. So you have this whole this cross section all riding in a stagecoach. I am, as I've already said, an absolute, just complete sucker for good location photography. And this was John Ford's first movie in Monument Valley, which is the best landscape on earth to put into a movie.
Even in black and white, because I saw this one in black and white. It hasn't been colored yet.
And no, it has not.
Some of them have, I think, that I saw. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, hopefully you did not watch colorized versions of movies. Hopefully you watched the original version.
I think Searchers was colored. Searchers was colored, wasn't it?
It was shot in color.
Oh, okay, good.
And also stop using the word colored if you don't mind.
I will.
In this day that we are talking about racist movies, it's just it's gonna give me the vapors if I keep hearing you say that word.
You literally have just in a half a second, I can't even tell you, less than half a second, sent at least 4 to 5 hives up my neck. You can't see it, but I didn't hear it until you said it. I'll figure out if I can. It's just
I just wanted to stop you before we get to the point where it's I don't like all the movie with black and white people. I like movies that are full of colored people.
I appreciate
that was going to come out of your mouth.
and
I needed it to not.
I needed it not to as well. So I appreciate that very, very much while I let these start to fade.
Sounds good. No, I think Stagecoach is just a fucking marvel. I adore this movie.
I just thought it was a little bit snoozy. It's a little bit snoozy, but that's all.
That is your prerogative.
That is my prerogative. Speaking of prerogatives, let's jump along to your number 4, which I do think is also on my list, and I'm worried that you're going to take my number 1.
I think there's a real possibility that my number 4 is on your list, because I think if you were looking for what are the 5 John Wayne films I needed to watch, so far both of the ones you've named would have been on my list for you.
Okay.
And I think this one will be as well. This is not the last film that John Ford and John Wayne made together. It is, however, unless I am mistaken, their last Western, putting a close on the genre that they helped so much define. And this is a movie about 2 men in the West one of whom is a sort of tough, unemotional scoundrel who gets the job done, and one of whom is a sort of sensitive, again, same themes as The Searchers in a lot of way, more of a civilized, sensitive, good person who takes credit for getting the job done because that's what needs to happen if civilization is going to move past horrible, violent stories, such as the story of the man who shot Liberty Valance.
You took my number one. I really like this movie a lot. This movie was so good. And I'll tell you why. James Stewart. Is he not? Who is this guy? He's like...
Did you just say that?
Did I just say what?
Who is James Stewart?
No, I know who James Stewart is. I've heard of him before. I'm just saying I don't even know what I've seen him in before. He is like the cutest.
Have you seen
button.
It's a Wonderful Life?
I have not.
What is wrong with you? Where were you raised? Were you raised in a hut in northern Canada?
I am also one of those orchids that like is easily tousled and blown and can wilt if blown upon too hard. And so
are you familiar with It's a Wonderful Life?
I'm familiar. I don't know how it ends, and I don't want
Wonderfully.
to know. Wonderfully. Okay.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Sad. I had heard it was sad, and I just...
The title of the movie is not Life is Suffering and Pain and We Die Alone. The title of the movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm going to. I'll get around to seeing it. I hadn't
watch
really
it. Watch it this Christmas. Always the right time to watch it is any given Christmas.
Any Christmas. Okay. Well, I will now that I've seen him in this. He is like cute as a button. Oh my gosh.
This isn't even cute Jimmy Stewart. This is like Gone to Seed old man Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, I'm into that too. When he turns salt and pepper and he gets a little bit older, he just gets more handsome with age. And he's not a smoker like John Wayne, so he's just he's still like smooth.
I have to assume he was a smoker.
He wasn't. I asked.
Okay.
I Googled it, and they said
you know what
Stewart,
he was though.
No, don't tell me.
Much like John Wayne, he was a registered Republican.
Oh, but a Republican back then, didn't that mean something different?
It means you hated black people.
Oh, but not Jimmy Stewart. He was a fiscal.
Probably did. He was a pretty committed Republican,
He was a
actually.
fiscal conservative and a social democrat. That's the other thing that I Googled. I didn't, but I actually thought about that, and then I didn't want to know. I was just like, I just want to live.
That's not to.
I want to live in my love story with him. I loved everything about this movie, and it's on your list, so you tell me about it. But I want to watch this movie again and again and again. I thought it was
so good. I mean, this is obviously like one of these sort of movies that has this just immodestly famous quote that people trot out as being like the ethos of the entire Western. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And I think that's easy to overstate, but I do think there's this wonderful, wonderful counterbalance between the performances of Stewart and Wayne, the screen presences of Stewart and Wayne. I think that they really brought something to each other, like having each other as screen partners and as just like co-stars. It really challenged both of them to dig in and give, because they're both, and I love them both. And I think James Stewart is one of the great actors in all of the medium. They are both actors who have a shtick. Mm-hmm. They have very clearly defined personas. James Stewart breaks away from that persona more often, certainly in like his films with Hitchcock, Vertigo being the big example. But they both have really straightforward, narrowly defined things that they do. And I think that they're both really trying to push out of that in this film. I think they're both, frankly, trying to steal the film from each other.
Yeah.
So it does require that both of them try harder than either of them were trying by 1962. And I think that the results are some really interesting, prickly, tough performances as you see these two men sort of try to jockey for authority and jockey for presence. And I think this is what happens when you put two movie stars together is you just kind of shake it up and you see what happens when it's not just like movie star versus character actor, but movie star versus movie star. I don't think it is the quote unquote best John Wayne performance. I certainly don't think it's the quote unquote best James Stewart performance, but I think it is a very interesting and unexpected performance from both of them, and that's why I have it on my list.
And you know what you said, I think is totally true. I think it's forcing both of them to up their game because they are both intended to be these sort of love, like main character love interest, and that is already at a push and pull in this with one of the women that's in this of like sort of a love triangle situation, which I'm all in for.
I think you've misread The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
The gal, Vera Miles.
I don't think they are meant to be each other's love interest, which is what I just heard you say. Maybe I misheard you.
Wait, they are both after Vera Miles.
They're both after Vera Miles.
Yes,
they're
yes,
not.
yes.
They're not after each other.
No, but who knows? Who knows? But after Vera Miles, and I liked all of that. I wanted Jimmy Stewart to win for sure, but I do feel like it upped their game a bit, and I loved the play, like the interplay of these two totally different characters. This like again, leathery, grouchy. He's just grouchy in every movie. He's always name calling, and then he keeps kind of talking down to Jimmy Stewart throughout the whole thing, and kind of belittling him along the way because he's like, quote unquote, like, what does he call him? Fluffy, or he calls him, I don't know. He doesn't want to pick up a gun. Yeah, he calls him all these mean names. He calls him Pilgrim over and over again. I don't know if that's like a nice or not nice term. I don't know. And I just felt like I loved that sort of like, I want Jim Stewart. I want Jimmy Stewart to just sort of like win in this. But at the same time, I actually felt like this was John Wayne's least offensive character too. Like where I felt like a little bit of empathy for him. Like, oh, you're not as cute as Jimmy Stewart. Like, oh, he's the nicer guy. Like he has more to offer than you. And I felt like in all of the other things I saw him in, he's just like, he's so like, I'm at the top of all of this. Everybody's not as good as me. And this, I feel like, gave him a little competition. And I liked that whole dynamic in this. And again, I thought the last thing I'll say on this one is I thought by putting two lead actors in this, what I thought it did was actually demonstrate the sort of one note John Wayne, because I do think Jimmy Stewart just like is such a better actor. Like when you talk about dynamic actor that like actually sucks you in and is not like this sort of like monotone, like, hey, Pilgrim, put down the gun. Like it's the whole same thing every time with John Wayne. And I thought the two of them together did show Jimmy Stewart's sort of standout performance as well, which I liked.
That's fair. I think that is a motivated and uncharitable reading of John Wayne's performance style, but I will let it slide.
It's so, I just feel like sometimes like I could, like he kind of reminds me a little bit of my grandpa, John Wayne. And I'm just like, yeah, I can see him.
I'm saying if you'd watched 5 Jimmy Stewart films in a row, I think you would have had a not dissimilar experience.
Oh, I see. You're saying he's done this before, this cutesy thing he's doing. It's working on me though.
I'm saying both of them are drawing from their incredibly well-established screen personalities.
Okay. And maybe it was just the newness of Jimmy Stewart coming in.
The fact that you haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life
I just do
blows my mind. Have you seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
You know what? I haven't also seen that.
Have you seen The Philadelphia Story?
I saw the one with Tom Hanks.
That is just called Philadelphia.
I did see that one though, and it was good.
This has nothing to do with The Philadelphia Story and does not star
Not
Jimmy
a
Stewart.
sequel. Not a sequel. Anything else I would have seen him in?
Rear Window?
I did see Rear Window. Oh wait,
He's
is he
in
the
Rear
guy
Window.
in the
He's
wheelchair?
the guy who broke his leg in Rear Window.
Oh, I thought he was a smoke show in that too. He looks different. That I forgot. I loved him in that. He was
A
so good.
smoke show. You have taste in men.
I do. Oh my gosh. Everybody loves Jimmy Stewart.
Not sexually.
Yes, they do. You don't think so? So you're saying
I don't.
So you're saying right now, you line them up and they're like, you get 5 minutes with one of them. You would choose John Wayne.
They're undoubtedly both homophobes, so I would want 5 minutes with neither of them.
Oh, but let's say they weren't. You would take John Wayne.
John Wayne, I would.
Wow. He's probably got like that like smoker breath, you know, like it smells kind of like ashy and
He probably does.
Yeah, but you'll take it. You'll take it.
Over Jimmy Stewart, yes, I would actually.
Okay, well, again, to each their own. We have different tastes in men. I like him a little bit more, I don't know. Feminine. Do we know Rob? I mean, Rob is Jimmy Stewart, like a Democratic Jimmy Stewart, actually.
I've always just assumed that Rob uses more body lotion than you do. Just like on a day-to-day basis.
1,000%. I don't ever lotion. You know, when I lotion, my skin has to actually be falling off before I lotion. And then you know whose lotion I borrow? Rob's. I don't even actually own lotion. Tracks. Yeah. And he always has like these beautiful smells. And then he'll smell it and he's like, oh, you kind of smell like me. And I'm like, oh, I know. I use your lotion. And he's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm like, is it?
That's not weird. It's
like,
lotion.
It's kind of like smelling myself. Yeah, but his is like like really fragrant. Like it's like a cologne based. It's like a very masculine smelling cologne. And so I like to put it on because then I'm kind of like into myself too, you know?
Okay, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah. We all have habits. So that said, speaking of habits, I'm going to jump on to a movie that starts with H, just like habits, which is, am I on my number 3?
Yes, you are.
Okay. My number 3, I don't think you've seen this one. This is a deep pull. I wanted to have one that I thought.
If it's the one that I think I can think of one immediately. Actually, I can think of 2 immediately that start with H, and I've seen neither of them.
Okay. Well, then I think you haven't seen this one, and it's okay. It's, again, somewhat problematic, somewhat offensive, but like light offensive, I would say. This one comes from 1953, and this one is called Hondo. Have you seen Hondo?
I don't think I have. Like,
Okay.
if I did, it was like 35 years ago. Or
If
probably
you
not 35, but it was a lot of years ago.
The other part of it is, if you did, it's going to blend in with every other one that you've seen. There's nothing new about this, nothing inventive. But I watched it and thought, meh, I'm not like terribly bothered by this movie, and it was fine. So in this one, he plays an Army scout, and he goes off and he stumbles upon this homestead. This lady's there, and she's like, they're in the Apache territory where he likes to be. This woman's there with her son, and the whole time she's like, my husband's coming home. He's coming home. And then John Wayne's like, he's not coming home because he's dead. And she's like, you don't know that? And he's like, yeah, I do. He's dead. Even though he didn't really know, he just assumed because he thinks he knows everything. He was dead. John Wayne was right. But at the same time, his wife doesn't really know. But then what happens in this? He goes off to seek revenge. I think somebody comes and like either takes her kid or destroys her home. I don't know. The Apache, these things happen. So he goes out to seek revenge for her. And then this part kind of bothers me a little bit. The minute she finds out that her husband is dead, she's like, oh, John Wayne. Oh, I'm into you like Tim is too. So she's like all over John Wayne. She's like, it's probably too soon. And I'm thinking like, yeah, it is too soon, lady. But that doesn't stop her.
You know, it's the 19th century West. You didn't have the luxury of being unprotected. You needed a big, thick, meaty man with a gun.
Yeah.
At all times.
And for a beat, I thought this was going to be a progressive one because he meets her and he's like, oh, I was actually married to an Apache woman. And that's how I know everything about the Apaches. And then he makes some like snide remark like, I don't even remember her name. I needed her. Like it was one of those, like, I thought it was going to be like a romantic story. It wasn't. It was like a for convenience marriage or something like that. I don't know. But either way, it was fine. It was cute. I don't know. It was just like a bunch of guys riding around trying to go after people, and then it was over.
I like that. That sounds fun.
Highly recommend.
I need to see it. This somehow became like a very sought after film. I think it was very hard to lay hands on for many, many years. One day I'll see it. I'm sure it is not a John Ford. So yes. you are at this point. God
bless you.
Excuse me. You are at this point 3 and 1, I believe, with John Ford to non-John Ford. So we've got one more John Ford, and then my prediction would turned out to be exactly on the money. This was by John Farrow.
Okay, different John. Wait, have you done your number 3? Have you done your number 3?
No, I'm about to do my number 3.
Okay, good, because I didn't know if I should jump to the break or jump to your 3, which I think is my number 2, just so you know. And then I'm going to be done, and we'll have nothing for after the break, just so you know.
Well, then do we want to go to the break now just to be safe?
Yeah, we should. But
let's do that.
Tim, before we head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. You can join our Patreon, get early access to exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more from our Patreon site, just like Kim Cabaret, who picked up our Emmy Award level, entitling them to exclusive access to TV reviews, early access to classic movie reviews, behind the scenes. I was doing some lenses. I don't even know what that is on Patreon about my John Wayne experience, which was a bit bleak. You can also get this here podcast shout out. Also, you can also join at the $5 level our movie club. We do have movie trivia coming up. Be on the lookout on alternateending.com or the Patreon site for the dates and details for that. And also, You can also go out to our Amazon banner through alternateending.com and make purchases through there to support the site as well. Doing it is easy. All proceeds go to making our show better. People go out there and they buy the wildest things, just like the person who bought Magic, the Gathering of Phyrexia. Do you know what that is?
Phyrexia?
A Phyrexia. What's a Phyrexia? Phyrexia.
Can you spell this word?
No, I can't.
I see.
Magic, the Gathering, Phyrexia, all will be one set booster box. Oh, it's Magic cards.
Well, I mean,
Gosh.
Magic the Gathering, I know what it is. Magic the Gathering, Phyrexia, will be one is coming.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're bringing back. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I hope it's cool for you and I hope you love it. I also hope whoever bought this green tea and so much of it, so much green tea that you love it. I
am enjoying it very much. Thank you for
Is
asking.
that you? Oh my gosh. Why did you buy it through our Amazon banner? They have it at Costco right now for so cheap. And it's this like 80 million bags of tea box. And
This
I'm gonna buy you one.
is brewed canned green tea. I'm actually holding it in front of my camera right now. So those of you listening, that benefits you not at all. I am too lazy to make tea in the morning.
I see. But that tea looks really good.
It's good. It's good shit. And it's the grocery store by me, for some reason, has decided to just start charging a king's ransom for it. So it's cheaper to order it online.
Okay. All right. Well, then you keep doing that. I encourage that. You also want to read the Iliad like this other person that bought it. I read part of that in college, didn't finish it, and bought the Cliff Notes to try and get through the exam that I had freshman year. So I hope you enjoy it more than I did. Also, people out there getting razors, people out there getting Ed Wood, the special edition. I bet that is so good. And then also somebody bought the Apple. And I can tell you from experience, that is not good. So I hope you enjoy that as well.
Hopefully the person who bought the apple wasn't also the one who bought the razors.
You know what? Oh, gosh. That's really, really dark. That's really, really dark. And I am bothered that I got it without you having to explain it. That's the bothering part. That's the bothering part. So thank you all so much again for your purchases. When we get back, our number 1 and 2 picks for the best John Wayne movies.
I mean, my favorite John movie is Midnight Cowboy. Am I right?
Am I right?
It's about prostitution. And you call a man who goes to prostitute John.
And welcome back. We're here with our top 1 and 2 John Wayne movies. You've stolen my number 1. So we're back with your possibly 1, 2, 3 and my 2. So we'll start at your number 3 and see if it overlaps.
Well, I wanted to first, I wanted to bring us back from the break by calling back to the start of our episode. I used a word you were unfamiliar with. I thought it would be fair to define that word for you.
Yes.
Cunnilingus. This is from the Wikipedia page.
Geez.
Cunnilingus is an oral sex act performed by a person on the vulva or vagina of another person. The clitoris is the most sexually sensitive part of the human female genitalia, and its stimulation may result in a woman becoming sexually aroused or achieving orgasm.
Interesting.
Cunnilingus can be sexually arousing for participants and may be performed by a sexual partner as foreplay to incite sexual arousal before other sexual activities such as vaginal or anal intercourse.
Yep. You know what?
Cunnilingus.
I am glad you clarified, because if I'm being 100% honest with you, that's not what I thought it was. So
It was clear to me
I actually
that had been your assumption.
You know what? I thought it was number 3. I thought it was base 3, if I'm being really honest with you.
Well, that's fourth.
Yeah, no, it's 4th.
Right?
But
That's
now
fourth?
it's 4th. It's 4th.
No, I don't remember the base system.
Oh, gosh. Well, we all have different base systems.
One is asking the young woman's father if you have permission to court her, correct?
No, one's a kiss.
And 2 is anal.
No.
It's been a while since I've had to date. I don't remember the rules.
Gosh, it's been a while before we do it. It's been like 50 years, but I remember base 1 is a smooch. Base 1 is a kiss. Like more than a hug, it's got to be a kiss. You're still at home plate, like the original home plate before you've hit anything. is just
you're at bat.
You're at
the
bat.
hug is at bat.
Hug is at bat. Yep. You're in. Then it's first base is a kiss. Second base is, gosh, I don't even want to go into this to educate you, but second base is using sort of like this.
Yep. Fingering.
Yeah, actually, I think.
Digital penetration of the vagina.
Yeah, I think. And then 3 is
what could conceivably be left.
It's cunnilingus. No, 3. Tim, I'm gonna have to cut this all out, but
no, we're not.
3 is like, not this. It's this.
So that is cunnilingus. So you were right.
You said cunnilingus was
oral sex.
Oh. No. But I thought cunnilingus was home base. Yeah. I thought
no, it's fucking.
Yeah. That's where I was wrong. That's where I was wrong. But you know what? I have taken a quick note on here so that this never comes up again. Because I will tell you next time that I do know, so that you never have to define
I believe our
again.
podcast should be an educational experience. I think we should all learn always.
That's true. What percent?
Lifelong learning. That's what we call it.
Lifelong learners. That's who we are here. What percent, though, of our audience do you think needed that answer? Other than
just
me?
You.
Just me. I'm feeling that way too. If you want next time, you could just pop me a DM, like shoot me.
I am not going to do that while Rob is out of town, my lord.
That's right. No one has ever slid into my DMs. I would love if somebody would slide into my DMs just so I can feel like I'm a part of the crowd, but neither here nor there. Your number 3.
You know, it is here and there.
Your number 3.
Is my number 3.
Tell me about it.
So there's this picture called High Noon from 1952. And it is a movie about standing alone in the face of social pressure to not do anything but just kind of shut up and go with the flow. It is a left-wing Western. It is avowedly anti-Red Scare. It is very much about sort of not letting the crowd sort of cow you into doing what's wrong. And the plot is Gary Cooper needs help to stand at high noon against the bad guy, but no one in town will stand with him, and it's very tragic. And when John Wayne saw this film, he was outraged by the existence of a Western that is all about sort of how no one's got your back, how everyone's just going to let you hang out to dry, and that'll be horrible because everyone is craven and selfish. And he was like, that's not my kind of Western. My kind of Western is where everybody's going to do the right thing. Everybody's going to stand alongside each other. Everybody's going to join forces to save the day. So he and Howard Hawks, another filmmaker who came real close to having multiple films. If I only had 2 John Fords, there were going to be 2 Howard Hawks, is basically how my list was going to play out. Howard Hawks and John Wayne agreed, yeah, this High Noon, that's a bunch of horseshit right there. Let's make a movie about what happens if the bandit, there we go, that's the word I was going for. If the bandit is coming to town and the hero has to stand against him, and rather than nobody standing with the hero, absolutely, literally everybody's going to stand with the hero. And I think this is maybe no longer a hot take. It would have been for a lot of years. I think this movie is better than High Noon. I think it's just, Howard Hawks is a better filmmaker than Fred Zinnemann, but the film I'm talking about, which is about a whole bunch of people defending each other as they're trying to keep the bad guys from getting another bad guy out of prison. This would be 1959's Rio Bravo.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. No. Gosh, and that makes me wonder if mine is going to be on there. I thought for sure it would be. So this one, you're saying better than High Noon. There's also Rio Grande. You saw Rio Bravo.
Rio Grande and Rio Bravo are 2 different movies. Whereas El Dorado and Rio Bravo are basically the same movie. But I'm talking about Rio Bravo.
Rio Bravo.
And the other 2 are both good in their ways. This is the one I like the best. I think it is the one where John Wayne's sort of like at his most just generically appealing, which is why I put it on this list. Because, it is him being like, what if, the point of the Western is to say, everybody's got your back and people are basically good. And I think that's not what the point of the Western is at all, but it's what he wanted this movie to be. And I think it is the most uncomplicatedly enjoyable version of John Wayne, good all-American hero. It is not racist insofar as I believe there are no non-white characters in it. Certainly the villains are white. It has Dean Martin as a get this, as a drunk.
Oh, was he a drunk in real life?
He played a drunk. Whether he was a drunk is hard to say, but like his persona was barely ambulatory drunkard all the time.
They have those in most of his films. Like there's usually one drunk, like one person, and then they're usually lovely.
Well, John Ford loved drunks as like a sort of comic side character in most of John Wayne's movies are John Ford movies. So
that's true, and that worked for me. I needed that little bit of like relief.
It's great. John Ford's idiotic humor always charms me, even though I think it's always bad.
Oh, see, yeah, I was all into it. I was just like, oh yeah, I'll take that.
But it's always charming. I like it.
It's like, yeah, you know what we want, and you give it to us. You know, like it's slapsticky and funny, and like physical comedy. He's gonna fall. He's gonna bump his head. Whatever. I'm always into all that.
You know, Rio Bravo is sort of like the text of let's gather in one place, really fortify it extremely well, and defend all of the windows. So every like Citadel Under Siege type movie that you've ever seen is probably that director's homage to Rio Bravo. Notably, John Carpenter has more or less openly spent his entire career remaking this specific movie.
Okay. And he has not released it yet.
What? No. He's like John Carpenter's made like 7 versions of Rio Bravo.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. I wouldn't want to tell people that I was a little bit of a copycat, but you know.
This is a great movie because again, Howard Hawks is one of Howard Hawks and John Ford are probably 2 of like my 4 favorite American directors. So that's a lot of directorial horsepower that John Wayne found himself working with, which is, I think, frankly, part of the reason I'm pro John Wayne is because he good directors liked working with him, and I'm on board with that.
Even in the good and the bad and the ugly. Yeah.
I don't even want. I'm just going to glide past that.
Just keep going. I want to touch back on something you said because I thought I misheard you, and I did. But when you're with all of your like film friends later who like movies and watch movies or whatever, you have a joke in there, and you didn't even know you had it. You said he really fortified it. So next time you're talking about this kind of movies, he fortified it.
He fortified it.
Put it in your back pocket. You don't have to say that I'm the one that said it. It's fine. People are going to go wild. They're going to love it.
I'll trot that one out the next time we're having a wild bender. All of us grad students.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, shoot. Sorry. There was a varmint over there.
Like a rat?
I was just trying to work in another word. It's just like never mind.
Oh,
varmint?
Well, you see, you at one point said one of the rules was that we had to just do it organically.
That's what I was doing. That's why I hit the table and there was like a boom. So you thought that I hit like a bug.
But you faked it.
I know, but I could tell you weren't going to get there.
There wasn't a varmint.
There wasn't a varmint, but I could tell you were not going to get there and it was going to be weird. So I had to tell you I got nervous.
Well, thankfully, we didn't make it weird.
That's true. Speaking of weird, I'm going to tell you my number 2. And this movie is my number 2 for a reason. It's fine. I think I like its remake even better. But interestingly, these 2 hold pretty close. I think the differences between this movie and its remake are that the girl in it is far less annoying in the remake. And whoever plays the main character that's not... who are we talking about? John Wayne is also less annoying. I think I like all the characters better in the remake more. However, storyline sort of at its base is one that I can like totally jump on board, go bareback on, whatever. Mm-hmm. And this is 1969.
I thought we were using Western terminology, not gay porn terminology, Carrie.
Tim, it's also Western terminology. It's a dual purpose word.
Them cowboys just barebacking each other all the live long day.
Exactly. And this is 1969's True Grit.
Yeah, the cowboys are 69ing as well while they're barebacking, undoubtedly.
I don't think they're doing that either, but Robert Duvall's in this, and he's not barebacking. He's not. Neither is Glenn Campbell. Neither is...
Oh, I've heard stories about Glenn Campbell.
Have you?
No.
Oh.
I just didn't want to insult Robert Duvall.
That's true. How cute is he in this? He's just like a little guy.
He's like 6 years old in this. It's wild.
Although he still kind of looks
He's
old.
still like a 50-year-old
He
man.
still looks old. I was just like, how are you? Like, you're timeless, but not. Like, you've been 100 for the last 100 years. Like, he kind of looks the same. He's still bald, like all the things, but he's still really, really cute. Everyone knows the story of True Grit, but what I like about this is little girl is basically just trying to give justice and avenge the death of her father. So she recruits, she's kind of a badass. Like, so she comes in here, she recruits old Marshall Rooster. I'm just like, oh, what a ridiculous name. But anyway, who is played by
Rooster Cogburn, no less,
Rooster
even more ridiculous.
Cogburn. It's just so cheesy. I can't even handle it. To come in, he's a Texas Marshal Ranger or something like that. Comes in, and it becomes like, I love just sort of like day in the life of a little girl and a cowboy riding across the West trying to avenge their father's death. So I like the relationship aspect of this that builds. There's definitely some things that don't hold up. There's like a guy that's like spanking the girl, like a bad guy's like spanking her, and then John Wayne comes in and is like, that's enough over there, Pilgrim. And it's like, yeah,
and you would have preferred it if John Wayne had just like sat in the corner watching and maybe touched.
But he could have like shot the person, or he could have like been a little bit more aggressive.
That seems excessive.
I don't know. I wouldn't like, it was a bad guy spanking her. He's definitely shot people for less, and he's sort of like beating her on the butt. And so again, there's just some things that are a little bit whatever. But this girl, Maddie Ross, is just on this mission, and she like owns the show. Like, she's the one that's like, hey, Rooster, you're doing this, and hey, I'm gonna do this, and I paid you this. Like, she is like on a mission. So I like the whole storyline of this. I would say, though, the remake, which you've probably seen, I think, is John Wayne played by the guy from the Goonies in the remake?
No.
Oh, who plays John Wayne in the remake?
Well, John Wayne isn't in the remake, but Rooster Cogburn in the remake is played by Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, of course. Same difference. Very similar to the guy from the Goonies. But yeah, I liked that one better. The little girl in that I liked better too. Maddie Ross I liked in the remake, but it doesn't stop me from liking the storyline in this. I thought it was cute.
I think the remake is just no question about it. It's a better film. I mean, Joel and Ethan Coen made the remake. Henry Hathaway made this one. So I was wrong. You landed with only 3 John Ford films.
Oh, gosh.
So I have failed and will accordingly be quitting this podcast and retiring to a cave in shame.
Well, if it wasn't that explanation of the definition that set you over the edge earlier that you gave us, it should be.
No, that was me doing a public service.
Oh, I see.
which I define as trying to embarrass you by talking about sex on the air and seeing what your response is. That is the public service.
It is effective. It basically, like the comment I said earlier that caused the hives, it just sort of perpetuated them again, and I have them on and on throughout the show, but I'm used to it at this point. So that I think leaves it to your last one, isn't it?
It leaves it to my last 2, actually.
You have 2. I should have jumped around. Give me your number 2.
We mucked it up. We should have gone with my my number 2 prior to the break. Well, I will try to go quick. My number 2 is my 3rd and final John Ford film. It is the film in which I believe John Wayne gives the single best performance of his career. He plays an old cavalryman who is clearly in the twilight of his life and in the twilight of his career, and needs to sort of figure out how to gracefully step aside to let further generations take over the task of just being the sort of bulwark against dysfunction in the world. And it is fucked up immeasurably by one of the most ill-conceived endings that John Ford ever filmed. Whatever, that still gives us like an hour and 40 some minutes of just wonderful, wonderful old man thinking about his encroaching death and sort of pondering it with great gravitas and fear and thoughtfulness. And he does this whilst being surrounded by the most absolutely knock your ass off beautiful Technicolor cinematography. This is 1949's She Wore a Yellow Ribbon.
I thought about this one just on the title. I was like, I wonder if I'll like this, but I didn't get to it.
I think it would have made your list.
Shoot, I would have really loved to bump the Stagecoach one off.
Well, that would have made me feel a little sad. It makes me feel a little sad to know that you like True Grit better than Stagecoach, for that matter.
Oh,
But
1,000% better.
I don't like True Grit very much.
Oh, that's because you don't like kids. You don't like
I
anyone
like the
under...
remake a lot. I
That's
don't
true.
like the original very much.
That's true. I found her just a little off-putting. But anyway, I really do want to see this. So tell me, like, you think in the category of John Wayne being somebody that we like and is approachable, and the storyline being digestible and like good. You think this kind of falls into that category? Like,
well,
The Man Who
I
Shot
think
Liberty Valance?
it is substantially less racist than a lot of the films, which I feel is a for some reason is something that bothers you. I know I get it. I just have a corroded callus over my heart, and I've spent the last month watching cartoons that have blackface in them. So
Yeah, no, that'll do it.
I'm a wicked person.
I keep trying to like pick off that callus. It's not working. It's been a
Oh,
long
no,
time. It's just
no.
there.
It gets thicker so much, and you just try to like scrape off a little bit of it. Your little tiny,
Yeah.
teeny tiny pumice stone.
Yeah.
It's just a losing battle.
Yeah.
But so it's not so racist. And it's a good fit because, again, I think when he gets older, he gets more interesting. And in this case, like, it's all about being old.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, when are you so old that you don't get to be John Wayne anymore, essentially? And the movie is him grappling with whether he is in fact that old.
Oh, so it's a little bit sad too.
It's a little bit sad.
Oh, and how old is he in this movie?
Probably in his early 50s.
Okay.
I don't actually know when he was born.
I think
That is something I can find out on the fly.
In the 20s, 1920 something.
He was born in 1907, which means he was
Oh.
42.
Oh,
He was
shoot.
a craggy old mummy of 42 when he made She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Holy balls. I hate this movie. It is my least favorite film of all time.
You've passed him up. You've passed him up.
Not yet.
Well, almost. Well, kind of.
I'm probably the age he was when he
It
was
was
filming.
filming.
She
this
Wore a
movie.
Yellow Ribbon.
Oh my gosh.
God damn it.
Yeah, it's the worst. So I watched the Goonies, not the Goonies, the Burbs the other day with the kids. And I
Yep.
remember thinking that movie was horrifying, scary, like all the stuff. I haven't seen it in years. And so I was like, girls, prepare yourself. Like, this is going to be really, really scary. And it turns out the scariest part of it is that I'm like 10 years older than both Carrie Fisher and Tom Hanks in that movie. And I'm like,
Oh,
these
wow.
old people, we looked them up. They were like 33 when they filmed this. And I'm like, oh, no, like, this is so sad. They look like adults. And I'm like, how have I gotten to look like an adult? Like, oh gosh, it was just the worst. And again, now I hate that movie because I'm like, no.
I get it. It caused like a real crisis in my life when I was watching Star Trek most recently, the original series of Star Trek, not any of the movies, and realized that I was at that point in time, and this was a couple years ago, I was older than William Shatner was when he was playing Captain Kirk.
You're like, William Shatner.
You don't ever want to realize that you're
No.
older than the face of William Shatner staring back at you out of the television.
No, you don't. You're like, oh, because that guy was old. And you're like, how have we gotten here? But
William Shatner season 1 of Star Trek is like 35 years old.
oh my gosh. And
Isn't that a horrifying thought?
yeah, it is. Like, think about that when you watched it as a kid. You were just like, oh yeah, this over the hill guy, William, and
Yep.
steering this ship around. Like, he's got to be so old to know how to navigate this really complex ship. It's like, no, he was just
No,
35 and
he's
had
just a
no
baby.
idea what the hell he was doing. It's basically what it was.
So speaking though of people who are just so goddamn old, people who
Yes.
are on death's door, my number one,
Okay, I'm excited for this.
the last film John Wayne ever made. It comes out in 1976, directed by Don Siegel. So even though I said, what if I had 5 John Fords? It would have at most been 4 John Fords and 1 Don Siegel, because putting this one at number 1, easily done, no brainer. Definitely the film that I think does the most interesting job of like pondering what is the John Wayne thing? Like, what is his career about? What is the screen persona about? And it comes to the story of an old gunslinger who just committed a lot of violence in his youth, and now just kind of wants to retire and be old and die in peace, and can't, because his legacy as being one of the great gunslingers of the West is just going to keep keep hounding him, even though he's like falling apart. And John Wayne he was dying of cancer when
That's
he
what I
made
was
this
going to
movie.
ask you. Did he? I wasn't sure he was dead because his
He is,
Wikipedia page.
he's long dead.
His Wikipedia page has no death date in there. So I was like, maybe this is one of those things where people think he's still alive. Like
It's
Elvis.
because he was ascended bodily into heaven, and his Wikipedia page does have a death date, June 11, 1979. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, man, I missed that. Maybe
Yes.
his IMDb didn't. I didn't dig too deep.
John Wayne died of cancer,
What kind?
probably cancer that he contracted on the set of one of his very worst films, which is The Conqueror, where he plays Genghis Khan, which is terrible. So terrible movie. No one likes it. So many people got cancer from that shoot because there is a real possibility that they were basically filming over fallout from the nuclear bomb tests because
Oh,
it was in the
Wow.
Nevada desert.
so it's like a known thing that other people passed away from that.
There was like the number of people on that shoot who died of cancer was like 45% of the cast and crew or something.
What?
Just insane.
That is truly bonkers. So did people, what happened with it? Like, did people flip out and come back, like families of this?
It was like 20 years later, and it was
Yeah.
like, wow, it sure seems like a lot of the people who shot out the Conqueror are dead now of cancer at a young-ish age. John
Wow.
Wayne was 72 when he died, so not crazy old. And then they were also like, wait a minute, we filmed a movie near White Sands, oopsie doodle,
Oh.
and that's everyone was dead, so there was no fallout from it. Ha ha!
But the good news is you were able to get another Western word in there, oopsie doodle. I did hear that in Hondo a few times. John Wayne said oopsie doodle when
I think you're lying, but thank you.
you'll have to listen to the movie to find out. You'll have to see.
I'm just pleased you were so focused on whether or not that was a Western term that you missed me making a terrible fallout pun.
I am too. It was kind of a win-win, I think, for both of us.
Everyone's happy. But anyway, I'm not talking about The Conqueror. I'm talking about The Shootist, which again, just this phenomenal story about what happens when someone like John Wayne becomes a miserable, old, falling apart sack of flesh who just wants to die peacefully, and young Turks keep bothering him.
What's a Turk?
And,
Like Turkish people?
Just a young Turk is a phrase for sort of like a young man who's sort of full of the desire to prove themselves by, for example, engaging with an old gunslinger. I don't actually know if I named this film. This is 1976's The Shootist.
The Shootist. The Shootist.
The
This is your
Shootist.
number one is The Shootist.
The Shootist.
Okay.
Shootist with an I, not shootist with an E, although that would be a funny word to me.
That would. This one, I don't feel like the way you're talking about it feels like your number one. I feel like you've talked more passionately about some of your other ones. What makes you love this?
I'm trying to wrap the episode up
Oh, I see. Well, that's actually
because
for the best.
I did 2 in a row.
Oh, I see. And it's for the best because I am at 6% on my computer, and I just don't know why I don't bring a charger with me anywhere I go. But what other podcast were you on?
What?
Or you said it's the second for the day. Which other podcast were you on today?
No, I did 2 in a row. I did The Shootist and then She Wore Yellow
Oh.
Ribbon in a row.
Oh, sorry. It's been a long day. I told you. It's been a long week. So the Shootist. Okay.
The Shootist.
Well,
I think this would actually be one you would like a bit more because it is about like, why doesn't John Wayne just die already? Is
Yeah.
kind of the subtext of the story, and I think that you would respond to that.
That's true. I think I might, although I flip an empathy switch when somebody gets like to a certain age where now I'm like, you bugged me for like the last 30 years, but now that you're old and you're falling apart, then I feel
then you'd be
sad.
sad that he's dying. So either way, you're getting the correct thing out of the movie.
Well, that's true. That's true. The Shootist. And so ultimately, though, he died of, what kind of cancer did he die from?
That's a good question to which I do not know the answer.
Okay, because I was thinking it
The-
was going to
the
be
fatal
long.
kind.
A lot of smoking. A lot of times he wasn't even putting down his gun in like a fight, or his cigarette in a fight, and he'd like still have the cigarette in one hand while shooting.
Well, yeah, because
with both.
that's cool.
It is
That's a
really-
cool thing to do.
It's really cool. I don't think they knew then that it was bad for you. Otherwise, I think he would have quit.
They sort of knew.
Okay.
Like we've known for like 500 years and change that it's bad for you, but the tobacco industry did a very good job of hiding that fact.
That's true. Well, I always knew, and I've never liked it. But you know who also
Oh, he died of stomach cancer.
stomach?
Oh, that's one of the really bad ones.
Oh, is it? I mean, you can take that out, and then he could have like just sort of been like operating on some sort of like connective tubes from his colon and on the outward way. But no, he didn't opt for that.
I think that it is important that people not look to our podcast for medical advice. I'm just going to say that.
If you are experiencing any of
If you have stomach cancer,
Please
don't listen to Carrie.
don't listen to me. It's a terrible idea. But don't smoke. Also, don't smoke. It's very bad for you.
Well, certainly don't swallow lit cigarettes, which I think is what would give you stomach cancer.
I agree there as well.
Vis-a-vis smoking.
This is all true. And so now we kick it to our audience who had feelings on John Wayne and a lot of feelings. Again, mixed feelings on this guy. We all have our own opinions, but here's where it stacked up. So we have it kind of like a 5, 4, and 3. The 3 movies that were tied, but I'm still going to call them 5, 4, 3, were Stagecoach, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, woo-hoo, and Red River, which we didn't cover.
Red River was going to be my other one if I decided I could only possibly do 2 John Fords.
Okay. All right. Could be a good one. And then we had at number 2, The Quiet Man, which I thought about.
I thought that was going to be your number 1.
It wasn't free. It was $4. And I was like, you know what? Not worth it. Can't do it. I was like, gotta
There's
be
a
free.
scene where John Ford and Maureen O'Hara get stuck in a rainstorm, and he's wearing a white shirt, and she's like pawing at his chest in the rainstorm, and it's like
I love
increasingly just becoming sheer. And it's like, why is this movie the perviest movie of the entire 1950s? How is this happening right now?
Oh my gosh. I
It's
love a scene like that. That happened to me, only it was pants, and I wasn't wearing underwear, and it was my first date with Rob, but that's for another time because I only
And
have...
it wasn't a rainstorm. It was pee. Am I right?
It was literally a rainstorm. It was first date. It was the first date.
Peeing on a first date just like that. That's true love that he didn't drop you on the spot.
3% on my computer, Tim. And at number 1, The Searchers, which we both had.
Yes.
Our winner this week was MC Steffen, who said, like Gavin and Carrie, I also haven't seen 5 John Wayne movies, but I am happy to share a complete ranking of every John Wayne performance I have witnessed. 1, Ethan Edwards in The Searchers, which we agree. And then also he experienced Genghis Khan in The Conqueror, as you mentioned earlier. I'm missing so much in the middle, but at least I've covered both ends of the quality spectrum, which I can agree.
I'm glad MC made that joke because I was going to make that exact same joke. So he
beat
saved
you
me
to
the
it.
effort.
And
Thank
as
you,
we
MC.
said, he's very funny. MC, shoot us an email at contact@alternateending.com to claim your Amazon movie rental. In closing, thank you all pilgrims and buckaroos out there.
Carrie,
Yes.
how much power is left on your computer?
Oh my gosh, let me look. 5. It's actually 5%. I said 3 to kind of speed you up.
I said that because I thought it would be funny.
Oh my gosh.
Because I stopped you from the outro
But you
to
have-
ask you if your computer was about to die.
It is. It is. Nothing stresses me out more than a dying battery. So thank you all for joining us. You can go out to our social media page, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, alternateendingcom.com, where you'll find all of our reviews.
Oh shit, Carrie. What's it at now?
1%, Dim. It's dropped dramatically to 1%. It knows I'm trying to get out of here. You also can subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, and don't forget to leave a review. We always love those. Until next week, we'll catch you next time.